All right, good afternoon. Congratulations to President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. I know people had extraordinary days yesterday. I'll tell you, when I saw Lady Gaga point to the flag that was still flying over the Capitol, that made my heart skip a beat. And I was pleased to see that because she reminded us of what a precious thing we have of democracy, and that the Star-Spangled Banner really stands for something, which is the preservation of democracy, represented by that flag. And I'm proud that our state flag was on the Capitol with so many thousands yesterday. A great day for all of us to make sure democracy was still in place. And he's off to a great start. We just had heard that he's going to implement the Defense Production Act to help accelerate the production of vaccines, and that's something that we're very hopeful about. Today's anniversary of sorts, the first case of COVID-19 was announced 1 year ago today, right here in Washington. And I know we remember what we were doing that day, because we were hit the first and the hardest. However, Washington responded based on science, based on a commitment to the preservation of lives, and we have had considerable success in that regard. We've lost 3,940 COVID lives, and we know each of those is a hole in the hearts of families. But I do think it's important to realize that the things we have been doing have had success, and it's a reason, and it's important to realize that, because we need confidence in the next several months, which will be difficult months. We need to have confidence that we can reduce the loss of lives by doing things that are based on science and compassion for one another, and by putting a great value on the preservation of life. Now, I say that because there is very clear evidence that what we've been doing has saved many, many lives. The New York Times reported just last week that had the rest of the country joined us in this effort and followed the science that is clear and followed the good common sense safety laws, there would have been 220,000 fewer deaths in the United States. Other states of similar size to ours have had 6,000 or 7,000 more deaths than we have experienced. We are saving lives today. We saved lives in the past, and we are going to continue to save lives in the future in this state by making good decisions based on science and our love for fellow Washingtonians. So our recovery from the pandemic is progressing, but we have a long ways to go. And we need to continue to learn from what we have experienced and apply those lessons to continue to improve our approach, both to defeating the pandemic and opening up our businesses as well. We can't ignore it, we can't run from it, we must face it and defeat it. And that's what we intend to do. So in the last few days, as you know, we have announced 3 new lanes, if you might think of it, on the freeway of vaccine distribution. Number one, we have adopted a goal of 45,000 doses delivered, or the capacity to deliver those vaccinations a day. Number two, we are standing up standalone mass vaccination sites. Number three, we are engaging the entire pharmacy industry as a distribution network. And actually, there's a 4th lane of new business partnerships that has already shown some significant effect. If I can address just the mass vaccination sites, we have 4 sites. We hope to have those up sometime next week. They will be staffed significantly by the National Guard to do both logistics work and actual some vaccination work by members of the Washington State National Guard, who we are very appreciative of. The Guard has been doing so much work during this pandemic. They have staffed our food banks. They've worked on security. Now they're going to help us increase the rates of these vaccinations. Pharmacies are coming on rapidly. I had a good meeting with Costco this morning, which has over 20 sites they'll be bringing in Safeway, I'm told, did over 500 doses in their first day that their pharmacy was involved. And we now have these pharmacies available across the state of Washington to be able to help. Over the last week, our average daily vaccinations have exceeded 16,000 doses a day, and we expect that to continue to improve. In the last 25 hours, that went up to 25,000 doses that have been reported to the state vaccinated over that period of time. And as you know, we believe there are considerable additional vaccinations that have been delivered that simply have not been reported yet to the state. We are making progress in this effort fairly rapidly. Last week when I spoke to you, we'd had 32% known deliveries of vaccination. That's gone up to over 48% in the last day or so. So that continues to increase. Just to give you a sense of numbers, we have produced 13th in the nation as to total vaccinations that have taken place in the state of Washington as in the United States, 13th. But we have more work to do. We do want to make sure that you can find what phase you're in, and I hope you go to findyourphasewa.org, findyourphasewa.org. These systems, as sometimes occurs, were bulky and clunky the first 24 hours, but we've had relatively good success recently. And through the DOH website, you will be able to find the location of doses and where to find them and to contact them and the system. Today we're joined by another leader in the private sector helping to vaccinate people, and that's Amazon. My staff has had many conversations in various companies the last few days as part of our public-private partnership. So additionally, Amazon today is announcing they're establishing a pop-up clinic in Seattle this Sunday, pretty quick action, with the goal of administering 2,000 vaccines in the public at one event. This event will be eligible for anyone who is eligible for the vaccine. They're doing this in partnership with Virginia Mason, and we've got a couple of folks talk about that today. So to start the discussion, we've got Amazon's Senior Vice President of Global Corporate Affairs, Jay Carney, who had his day in the sun with the previous administration, and I know enjoyed the start of the Biden administration. Jay, thanks for joining us.
Governor Inslee, thank you so much. Yes, I certainly, at a personal level, deeply appreciated yesterday's events, and I'm glad to see President Biden taking action right away to address this terrible pandemic. I want to thank you, sir, for your efforts as governor through this incredibly challenging period. You mentioned we're at a somewhat infamous one-year anniversary. And of course, Washington State and the citizens of that great state were hit the soonest and the earliest, and you and your administration had to react fastest when COVID began to hit these shores in the United States. So I applaud you for your efforts, and we've been grateful for the collaboration we've had with you, sir, and with your team over these many months. You know, we're committed to help you, sir, and the state, because Washington is our home state. We were born there, and we are now the largest employer in Washington State, as you know. Speaking of President Biden, yesterday we sent a letter to the new president offering any assistance we could provide in his effort to vaccinate 100 million Americans in 100 days. We think we can leverage our operations, our information technology, our logistics, and communications capabilities in ways that could help with this effort, and we want to be a part of it in any way that we can. As part of working with you, sir, we're proud to be a charter member of the Vaccine Action Coordinating System, or VAX, which is newly established. And we're committed to helping you achieve your goal of vaccinating 445,000 Washingtonians per day, which is a great goal to have. We have some announcements, as you mentioned. First off is the partnership with Virginia Mason, which we're very grateful for. That's to establish a pop-up vaccine clinic this Sunday aimed at vaccinating 2,000 people. And second, we're committing one of our own executives to be on loan to your team, to your vaccine command center, so that we can leverage our expertise through that executive in your efforts going forward. And we're also, I want to say, ready to help administer vaccinations to our essential workers in Washington State. We have 20,000 of them who are on the front lines in our fulfillment centers. That help we can provide administering those vaccinations will then free up resources for other efforts to move quickly on vaccinations. So at the appropriate time, we're ready to help there. We have, as part of that effort, agreed with a third-party occupational healthcare provider to administer vaccines at our facility, just like we do with flu shots. So it's because we have such big, employee bases in these fulfillment centers, we can get a lot of vaccinations done very quickly, and we want to help in that effort. We will do that in coordination with our COVID-19 testing program, which I know we've discussed and I think people are familiar with, but we established our own COVID-19 testing program at our fulfillment centers. It's now available at 650 sites across the United States, and we've already run over 1 million tests. And the truth is, COVID-19 has been a tragedy for the country, for the world, and for Washington, and it's disrupted the state's social, cultural, and economic life, and we're eager to help save lives here in our home state, to rebuild the economy with you, and to turn the page on COVID as quickly as we can. We look forward to working with you. We thank Virginia Mason for the partnership, and we'll continue to look for ways to help in any way we can.
Thank you, Jay. We know we're going to keep talking to you too. There's a lot more work to do, so we'll look forward to our next discussion. But thanks for pitching in right here at the beginning. Gary Kaplan, who's been such a successful leader, who's helped us in our state look at some lean management systems to improve quality. So he's a good guy to have on this team. Gary.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you, Jay. Let me just echo Jay Carney's comments. We are proud to be Washingtonian. We appreciate the perspective on how well we are doing, but it won't just continue to happen unless we all pitch in and do our parts. And so thanks for leading us, Governor, in the right direction. Virginia Mason and our CHI Franciscan, we are a new organization, Virginia Mason Franciscan Health. I'm a practicing internal medicine doctor and privileged to serve as co-CEO of our new organization. We've been actively involved since December vaccinating COVID-19 patients, vaccinating patients to prevent COVID-19, 1A, those who are healthcare workers, high-risk individuals, and people living in congregate settings. And now that we've moved to 1B, we've really ramped up to vaccinate people in that 65 and over age group, as well as people 50 and over who meet the criteria for multi-generational households. We have vaccination clinics across the region, here in First Hill on our main campus, Virginia Mason Medical Center, Bainbridge Island, Bellevue, Federal Way, Linwood, and also across the South Sound through our legacy Franciscan sites. And we have been looking for opportunities to expand. You inspired us, Governor, when you challenged us on Sunday evening to go for 45,000 a day. We've been looking for the opportunities to make that a reality, and we're thrilled to have this opportunity in partnership with Amazon. So we're looking for a large-scale vaccination opportunity, and as Jay mentioned, our first will be this Sunday, January 24th, 8:30 to 4 p.m. at the large Amazon Meeting Center on 7th Avenue in the South Lake Union area. Amazon is making this very easy for us, generously providing us with the facility, handling all the setup, face coverings, wipes, signage, wayfinding, and even, and I know this sometimes concerns people coming into this downtown Seattle, free parking. There will be parking available with easy access to an elevator. You go up the elevator and you will be taken directly to the vaccine area. Flows will ensure, of course, appropriate social distancing, and there will be plenty of staff there to assist all of the people that have come for their vaccinations. Virginia Mason will be providing all the medical supplies, the vaccine, and volunteers. We know that there are people who are eligible under phase 1A or 1B, and they've added themselves already to the Virginia Mason vaccine waitlist. So they should look in the coming hours, really, for an invitation to register for this event and get appointed for the large-scale vaccination that's going to happen on Sunday. Obviously, we do need two doses. They will be several weeks apart, 3 weeks for Pfizer, 4 weeks for Moderna, and they will be scheduled for their second shots on Sunday before they leave. So it'll be one-stop shopping, make it as easy as possible, and getting both doses is obviously critical to achieving the level of immunity that we're going to need going forward. I also want to remind people that whether you have health insurance or not, you will not be charged for the vaccine. So I do not want insurance status. You know, we still need to work hard on covering all Americans, but given today some still don't have insurance, you can still get your vaccine, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Really excited about the opportunity, looking forward to putting thousands more shots in arms, and this will be the first, and we're looking forward to many more large-scale vaccination events in the coming weeks. So thanks to Amazon again for the opportunity. Thanks for your leadership, Governor, and full speed ahead.
Yes, Gary, we want to thank you and your colleagues who are accelerating their rate of vaccinations in the hospitals. Hospitals were the significant repository of these precious vaccines, and we've asked the hospitals to dramatically accelerate the rate that they're doing these vaccinations, and that has mean more work for everybody in these hospitals to stand up these systems and to make sure we do this within 7 days. So I want to thank everybody of your colleagues to make sure we get that job done. We appreciate that. Gary, did we tell folks how to sign up for this? If we did, I might have missed that.
Yeah, well, so we have our website, virginiamason.org, and there's a place there to get on the waiting list, which then will instantly be converted to appointment scheduling opportunities. So we're asking everybody to go to the waiting list. We already have many hundreds of people on that list, and so all of those plus people who sign up in addition will be sent opportunities to schedule their appointments later this afternoon and this evening.
Great. Onward and upward. Thank you very much, gents. We have Dr. Shah, Amir Shah is on the line, and he has to leave in about 5 or 6 minutes. So why don't we take questions on this issue before I make some other comments? So why don't we take questions on vaccine issues here, particularly anyone who'd like to ask Dr. Shah a question, or these two gentlemen. Why don't you have at it? Can we do that, Emily?
Oh, I think the two gentlemen actually need to hop off.
Okay, the two gentlemen are leaving. Thank you, gentlemen. And if anybody wants to ask Dr. Shah a question, this would be a good time in the next minute or so.
Reporters would like to ask Dr. Shah a question, please raise your hand on the WebEx, and I will call on you. Okay, so we have Joey Thompson from the Everett Herald.
Hi, Dr. Shah, Governor Inslee. In Snohomish County, we've got 3 high-throughput mobile vaccine clinics. 2 of them are operating through the end of the week. 1 had to stop yesterday, all because they are low on doses. We've known that the supply has been an issue, but how are you going to prioritize getting the vials to these places that have the opportunity and capacity to get those vaccines administered?
Thank you for that question, and I'm glad you asked it. Governor and I have been talking about this very issue for the last couple of weeks, but really for the last few days it's been more intensified. I have spoken with the health directors in King County, Pierce County, and Snohomish County today, and we're very much working together and doing whatever we can. We know the reality is that we do not have enough vaccine supply that's coming into the state, so we're doing everything we can behind the scenes to move or transition or support vaccination efforts that are throughout the state, including in the 3 counties in the Puget Sound area. And the final thing I would say is that there has been a lot of behind the scenes work, as you've heard from the governor, which is not just our private sector, but our public sector as well, our public health and healthcare sectors working together. So we don't have it all solved, but incredible amount of progress from that 32% from last week to 48% of Washingtonians that have been vaccinated, at least 48%. And so we're confident we're going to continue to make progress on this. but we're in touch with our local health officials to help support what they need on the ground as well.
If I may just describe this process, on a weekly basis, the department looks at what we hope to have coming in from the federal government and makes distribution to systems decisions based on, principally how we can maximize the vaccination rate. And so we will be having distributions to other mass vaccination sites and Snohomish, King, and Pierce County as a certain portion of the next week or two supplies coming in from the federal government. We also have existing stock, which is in some of our hospitals, as I alluded to, and we have required those hospitals to exhaust those within 7 days of their receipt. So I know people may wonder, why, if we have a dose that's sitting in a hospital in Olympia, why not drive it up to Snohomish County? And the reason is they have appointments already made for people to say, give them a vaccination this afternoon. So that is a supply chain that is working and is going, and we have demanded, frankly, that it go much faster. So those are decisions actually to be made in the next 24 hours about the next distribution system, and we try to do it as fairly and equally and successfully as possible. We now also have the pharmacy chain that is coming online. So the department tries to match both the demand and the supply in an equitable way geographically as much as humanly possible. And we look forward to that supply chain increasing, which is ultimately what we need. Look, if we're going to do 45,000 doses a day, we need the federal government to triple at least what their production is, because we are already vaccinating more people a day than we are receiving from the federal government. So if we are going to fully utilize the mass vaccination site in Snohomish County, we just simply have to get more doses from the federal government. And I'm very hopeful that some of the things the Biden administration has already got running is going to accelerate that process, because we need those doses.
We have 2 more questions for Dr. Shaw before continuing on. Next one comes from Laurel with the spokesman review.
Hi, Governor and Dr. Shaw. I'm wondering if you could give an update on the long-term care facilities vaccinations. Do you know how the percentage of how many of those are done? Do you know when we will be done? And are doses being set aside specifically for that federal partnership program?
Dr. Shaw, address that?
Yeah, and in fact, Michelle Roberts is on this one. It might be good for Michelle to answer this question. In general, this has been another part of the challenge because we're vaccinating, as the governor said, on the allotment that we're receiving. We also know that the long-term care facilities are being vaccinated through a separate pharmacy program, which also makes it confusing at times with the numbers. But Michelle, would you be able to add in a couple of details here?
Yeah, we have about 2,400 facilities in Washington State who signed up for the National Long-Term Care Pharmacy Program with CVS and Walgreens. And we have set aside doses kind of at the CDC warehouse level to support that program. Right now, that's about 139,000 doses set aside for that program. We don't have great data on exactly how many of those doses have been used because CVS and Walgreens report directly to the federal government for their administration in that program. We have been talking with CVS and Walgreens to get clarity on their cycle, and what they have told us is that all those 2,400 facilities who've been enrolled will have their first visit by this Sunday. So, and they were on track to do that. And then they will continue to move towards kind of restarting the cycle because all those facilities will need a second dose appointment. And then they're going to, CVS and Walgreens will be doing a third and potentially a fourth visit to ensure there's 2 doses for anybody who was missed the first time they visited. So we think the guarantee that CVS and Walgreens have given the state is they will be done with all first appointments to those facilities by this Sunday.
The only other thing, if I could add, is that I was on a call this week with fellow secretaries of health across the country, And this was the very issue that I brought up. Michelle alluded to it, is that this reporting to the federal government, but not giving simultaneous information to state departments of health is a real problem. And we need to get that addressed. And so we're hopeful with the new administration that it'll be simultaneously bidirectionally reported both to or duly reported both to the federal government and state government, so we can keep track of what's happening within that LTAC systems.
If this isn't clear, basically the federal government assumed control of the distribution of vaccines to the long-term care facilities. So they had an independent channel that they directed and controlled to do long-term care facilities. And they did that with a contract with 2 pharmacies. And so we really don't have control over the long-term care facility system. And that's why, you know, we wish we had better transparency into that system, but it's controlled by the federal government.
So we have time for one more question during this portion. As a reminder to press, there will be more time for questions after. Final question here goes to Sarah with McClatchy.
Earlier this week, I believe we learned about 696,000 doses of vaccine had been delivered to the state as of January 16th. The governor said Monday that every dose already allocated before this week has to be given by January 24th. And with current numbers on the dashboard, it would appear that would require essentially doubling how many doses have been administered so far in the next 3 days. Do you have any more recent numbers to share that would show maybe how close the state is to that target? And do you think it's possible to meet it at this point?
Yeah. So thank you, Governor. So thanks for that question. Michelle can provide some additional specific details. As the governor mentioned, really the good news is that our partners on the ground, you know, they're doing just an amazing work. Partners on the ground have really increased their number of vaccinations based on appointments or the alternative mechanisms by having even a potential high throughput or a mass vaccination clinic. They've done everything they can. And yeah, we still have additional work to do. So we still have a few days, and there are some data lags before we get the final numbers. But we do believe that we're making significant progress in this area. There is likely going to be more that we need to continue to do to both encourage and incentivize and or require our partners to be able to do certain things. But we have made tremendous amount of progress this just the last several days. Michelle, did you want to add any specifics on the numbers from what she was quoting?
Yeah, if we want to, I believe there's a slide that actually could probably be pulled up with the numbers, if that's possible.
We're looking here.
Very good. So here is some of the updated. Here are the updated numbers as of this data is largely as of last night. And so here's where we're at with 362,000 doses given. And these are doses that have been reported to the state. And that's where a lot of this disconnect is happening. So we believe that many more doses have been administered out in the community. That's what our health systems are telling us. And then there is lags in reporting to the state. That's because these data are in a lot of disparate systems, but we're working to get those connections made so that we will have accurate data reported on a more timely basis. The new information about how many doses have been delivered as of yesterday into Washington State is 829,800. That does include, even they're not delivered, but that does include the 139 I mentioned thousand that are set aside for long-term care, which is that next line. So if you look at what our percentages are for where we're at with doses given, if you include the long-term care amount, which as the governor explained, we have less control over, that's really CVS and Walgreens control, but with long-term care, we're at 43.6%. And without long-term care, we're at 52.4%. That's data reported to the state. And then, like I said, we are working very quickly to resolve these data disconnects that are happening. So we can have one accurate story of how many doses in Washington state are in arms.
The good news is, sorry, Governor. I was just going to say the good news is we're making tremendous progress. But again, none of us are satisfied until we continue to see these numbers drive higher and higher. And so that's what we're committed to doing. And we've been working very closely with our partners on the ground, as well as all of our partners at the state under the direction of the governor, so we can continue to move in this direction. But the bottom line is we want to make sure those who are watching that they also recognize that it is going to require some continued coordination on the ground, which means that please stay in touch with your healthcare provider. Please stay in touch with your clinic. Please stay in touch with your hospital. Please stay in touch with your public health department. We want to make sure that you stay in touch with all the usual places you stay in touch with to get vaccines or care. And we are going to provide as much information we can from the state, but we want to support what's happening on the ground. Sorry, Governor.
No, I was just to point out, when we evaluate these numbers, sometimes it's difficult because if you get 100,000 doses in a half hour ago, obviously we're not expecting to do all this in a half hour, so you have to take that into consideration. I'll just say that we need a much more rapid delivery system. We insist on that. We've created requirements that our partners actually respond. We have distributed to our partners those doses. Those doses need to be out there, and we're asking and frankly demanding that our partners hustle up here. And it does take additional work. But these are not state employees administering it. These are private entities, hospitals, pharmacies, nonprofits, clinics. And we need to step it up. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Why don't I continue here on some other non-vaccinated related issues.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. I want to give you an update on our legislative session. Our immediate priority in this session is to get financial relief to the businesses who have had difficulty, for rental assistance to landlords and tenants. And we want to do that fairly quickly so that efforts don't have to wait till the end of the legislative session. We've had positive discussions the last couple of days with legislative leaders, and I'm fairly confident we'll get that job done fairly quickly. We have a good bipartisan understanding of the level of assistance that's needed in the pandemic, and I think there's a bipartisan recognition that helping these businesses, helping these landlords and tenants is the right thing to do, and do it as a first order of business, if you will, or close to first order of business of the legislature. So we're making good progress on that, and I think we're going to have a success. I'm also encouraged by our chances of taking the next steps in our state's absolute commitment to build a clean energy economy and defeat climate change. Senator Carlisle and Representative Fitzgibbons are both working hard on meaningful legislation in that direction. That includes the clean fuel standards so that drivers can have cleaner fuels that they deserve, and a cap and invest plan to make sure that we can build jobs with a clean energy economy in a variety of ways. We expect that the clean fuel standard will have a favorable vote out of committee in the near future, and we are very optimistic about our progress. People understand the existential nature of this threat this year, and I think this is the year for the next big step to defeat climate change. On unemployment and compensation, I'm pleased that my unemployment insurance bill has made it out of committee in the Senate. This bill is one of the critical components for economic relief for struggling businesses. I want to thank Senator Kaiser for her leadership. I want to thank Ranking Member Senator King for his support of that bill, because we know that without swift intervention, employers are facing an unprecedented rate increase of an unemployment tax as a result of the pandemic, particularly those with a limited history of layoffs in their portfolio. So to address these concerns, this bill is projected to prevent a total of $920 million in employer tax increases in 2021, and to prevent approximately $2.6 billion in tax increases over the 2021 to 2025 time period. This will get us past the COVID impacts to the status quo, recovering our trust funds slower, but relieving significant increases for businesses, which is critical for economic recovery effort. I'm encouraged that the legislature is further considering funding for support to those hardest hit by industries that remain impacted by necessary health-related COVID capacity reductions. On the equity front, we're making progress. Legislation we requested to reform independent investigations when there's police violence with citizens and use of force is also making progress. A hearing is scheduled Tuesday in the House committee, and we're looking forward to a robust discussion on how to move this bill forward. I'm pleased to say that other equity legislation is also making good progress. A House bill to make the Juneteenth a recognized holiday in Washington was voted out of committee, and this legislation, I'm pleased to say, ought to get done. Legislation that would remove the use of credit scores in determining your insurance rates has received a Senate hearing, and I believe this is the just, equitable, and economically productive thing to do. It's just wrong. It is just wrong to use that sort of discriminatory basis to jack up people's insurance rates in the state of Washington. It's time for us to right that wrong. We righted the redlining inequitable provision years ago, and this is the year to get this done. So it is early in the session, but we're making progress. I want to make a comment on some other progress we're making, and that is giving students and educators an opportunity to get back into on-site learning. We believe that we can continue in that direction safely by adopting the known safety protocols that we have demonstrated can be very, very successful in simultaneously improving students' learning and protecting the health of students and faculty and everybody in the educational community. The state's protocols are being implemented in areas where the data gives scientists confidence that our youth and educators can be together in the classroom. Now, I want to give a compliment to the educators who've been doing incredible work remotely. I've seen this with my own eyes. They have been amazingly innovative, creative. They've been dedicated, trying to corral a 6 or 7 year old remotely to keep their attention on a lesson plan. It takes somebody with a Nobel Prize winning talents, and they've been doing everything they can do. But we have to recognize that that's impossible for many, many students. And we also ought to recognize there are a lot of educators that are just desperate to get back into the classroom to see the people that they've committed their professional lives to. And what we have learned, thankfully, and I think this is very fortunate, we have fortunately demonstrated that by using good safety protocols, spacing, masks, cleaning techniques, that this can be done safely. And the reason I say that is that we have had somewhere between 100 and 200,000 students and their educators who have been in the classroom for months now in many places across the state of Washington. And they have had very minimal in-school transmission associated with that because we have learned lessons about how to do this safely. So we are pleased to see more students getting access to their incredible educators on site in many places in the state, and we would encourage that where the metrics that we announced a couple weeks ago can be followed. We hope that progress will continue. There is every reason based on science and experience to know this can be done safely. With that, hope to stand for your questions.
Governor, your initial request for use of the National Guard for Capitol security runs out tomorrow. Are there plans to request an extension to that? And moving forward, do you want to see any type of permanent security enhancements at the Capitol? Also, there's a hearing next week on a bill to ban the open carry of guns and other weapons at demonstrations and on the Capitol campus. Do you support that measure?
First question about the Guard. We have not made decisions past tomorrow on the Guard, so we have not made decisions about this. What I can tell you is that we are very pleased that we have had democracy without violence, in a peaceful way in the last few days. And I want to thank the members of the Guard, men and women who left their families on a moment's notice and have spent time standing in the rain and just working so hard. The State Patrol has done yeoman duty as a result. I just want to thank these people for their professionalism. We believe it has deterred what otherwise could have been some significant threats to our people on the Capitol. So I want to thank them for that. So this is a day-to-day decision-making at the moment. So when we make decisions, we intend to share them with you. As far as permanent's a long time, there will be an increased presence of law enforcement personnel for some period of time. The exact dates we can't give you at the moment. We do have at least the beginnings of a plan of the numbers of additional state troopers who will be on the Capitol to assure safety. We will not countenance an interruption with the democratic process in the state of Washington. I want to repeat that. We will not allow that. And I hope people got the message in that regard the last few days. We will continue a security system, some of which we will not share with you, Rachel, because we don't want to show people all of our security apparatus. So you're going to have a lot of things going on here you won't see, but will be effective in preventing interruptions of democracy. And I want to thank everyone involved in Washington, D.C. I went to JBLM and gave a send-off to our National Guard that flew back there and protected the nation's capital. And that flag was flying over the Capitol. I talked about that Lady Gaga pointed to, in part because we had men and women leave their families and go to that duty, all of whom were volunteers, by the way, so thank them. Your last question is about open carry. I've not taken a position on that bill yet, so we'll have to get back to you.
Hi, question about the mass vaccination site. Specifically, I believe Gary alluded to this in his comments. It seems that a one-day event might be less optimal than a longer event. Are there plans to lengthen this kind of mass vaccination partnership with Amazon?
Well, we will be in talks with Amazon about this. We're hopeful that, and Jay alluded to this, that they want to continue to help us. And I'm hopeful that they will be able to help us in additional ways. They wanted to do this right away. It's something they can commit to today. So I'm glad that they made a down payment on things that I hope they're going to help us with. We are appreciative of the business leadership on this. As I indicated, Microsoft is committed to doing a stand-up system to do vaccinations on the Microsoft campus. They think they can do 5,000 a day. And this is not just Microsoft employees. These are general members of the public. They have not asked for any, recompense for this. We really appreciate that. So we're very pleased with the business pitching in, and I'm hopeful Amazon will help in some way in the future.
Next question comes from Hannah with Cairo Radio.
By the way, I do want to note, this is not the only game in town in Puget Sound. Snohomish, Paris, and King all have mass vaccination sites that in the short order will be up and running. And today we're making some decisions about distribution to help support those sites. So we will support those sites in a variety of ways, including getting doses of an amount that we think will be the right amount. Decisions will be made shortly.
Hannah, go ahead.
Governor, turning back to the legislature, I wanted to ask you about a couple of bills. One is Tina Orwell's 1182 will come up for a hearing next week. It's the 988 bill that has been described to me as a game changer for our mental health system. Wondering if you have any thoughts on that bill and how it relates with your prior 5-year plan. And then also more than 1,600 people signed up for the bipartisan bill from Senators Mullet and Braun yesterday, 5114, on moving the state back to phase 2. Did you get a chance to listen to any of that testimony?
I'll have to get back to you on the Orwell bill to give you our response to that. So I'll try to do that as soon as I can. Actually, I did not listen to the testimony, but I'll tell you that the pain and the distress and the anxiety that those folks relayed, and I know they relayed it during this testimony, is something that I have felt very, very deeply before they arrived in Olympia. For months now, I have carried their pain in my chest. And the reason is I know very deeply the profound sorrow that they have had, and sometimes losing their business prospects, losing their employees, the anxiety that you must feel if you have a small restaurant and you've had to close it and lay off your employees, and maybe you put your life savings into it, and now that being jeopardized is something I feel right here every day. And I have done that for months. And I got to be honest with you, it's been very difficult. It's been harder for them than me, obviously. But the fact that we have had to make decisions that have jeopardized their families' treasures and their personal ambitions is a terrible thing. So I recognize that very deeply, and it has been most difficult to have to make these decisions. Now, that is why we are committed, and I've made an allusion to this, to helping them to the extent we can this year with tens of millions of dollars of relief. I have already on my own decision done over $100 million of business relief, and now we need much more, frankly, for these businesses to help these small business owners and employees. And I'm confident we're going to do that. It's the right thing to do. They need it. We had to respond to those cries that we heard from those 1,600 people to help them in a way that simultaneously helps them and also doesn't end up in somebody else losing their life. Now, here's why this is necessary, and this is a very, very hard reality. We have tested the Washington way, and I favor continuing the Washington way, and that's to make decisions difficult as they are based on science, based on experience. And that Washington way is to be, in some circumstances, reduce the chance of transmission of a virus, and we know to a scientific certainty that when people sit across the table with each other and eat, and you can't eat with a mask, nobody's figured that out yet, that is a very, very risky environment. This is a scientific certainty. It's the most risky environment perhaps you can think of. And there's, unfortunately, as a result, we've had to make some tough decisions. Now, the Washington way has been tested, and it has been found successful. And the reason I say that is that we have saved, as I indicated, if we had made different decisions, we would have 6,000 to 7,000 to 8,000 more deceased Washingtonians had we not made those decisions. And if we deviate from that course, we will have thousands more deceased Washingtonians in the months to come. And that's just a hard fact. I wish I could say otherwise. But unfortunately, we have very high transmission rates in our state. They're almost as high as they've ever been throughout this. And we have to remain diligent. So I respect, empathize, and have no question with the difficulty that these folks have told us about yesterday. But we've got to continue not to allow people to die in this state. And I'm intent on that, and I believe that respects and is in tune with the values of the state of Washington. Now, I might add, we have been able to make some progress. I was really pleased that working with industrial hygienists, our Department of Labor Industries has worked with the restaurant industry to open up more dining under a roof by figuring out a way, if you have more ventilation, that you can actually open up your operations under a roof. This is great, and quite a number of restaurants are using that. And I am really glad we've been able to make that progress.
Governor, how disappointed are you to learn from the Biden administration that the Trump administration really had no coronavirus plan for the country, that they have to start from scratch?
I am trying to talk about the previous president as little as I can. Just as the less we mention that name, the better, because we want to move forward. So I'm not going to really give you much of an answer except to say I am so glad to have a partner in the White House who will really help us. I believe Joe Biden understands how to move a large government. I know he cares deeply about this. You know his personal story about how important health is in his family. So I feel really good about it. Our first discussions with his vaccine team have been productive, and so far they've done pretty much everything that makes sense to me. So I'm ecstatic about having a partner in the White House.
Next question comes from Ian with KREM.
Hello, Governor. I was wondering, first of all, our local health district here in Spokane County has said that they found out about our mass vaccination site at the same time as the public. We were wondering if that was the intention when you announced the sites earlier this week. And also here in Spokane County, we're kind of struggling to move forward to the next phase of the vaccination due to a lack of doses. I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but do you have a timeline for when Spokane may see more doses so we can try to move on to phase 1B?
Well, we will see more doses when the federal government gives us more doses. I just can't create vaccines out of thin air, and that's the problem. So the whole state will see more doses when the federal government starts to produce more doses. And again, I'm glad we've got President Biden, who I'm convinced through the use of the National Production Act, something I urged the previous occupant to do, who never did it in a meaningful way, then we will be able to have more doses. That's just the simple answer. As far as, look, we're moving as rapidly as we can here. And so under normal days, we would have had a 6-month discussion with Spokane Health District, but we got to move fast here. So the planning is going very well in getting this up and running in Spokane. I checked on that this morning. The National Guard has every confidence they can stand this up. We hope Monday. That's not a sure thing because we may not get doses in Monday from the federal government. But I'm very confident they can get this going. And it'll be in good compliance with Spokane. I'm very confident it'll work out. There's nothing that we've planned that's going to be anybody in Spokane is going to complain about, I believe, because we want to get people vaccinated in Spokane County.
We have time for just a few more questions. Next comes Simone from Q13.
Hi, thank you so much. I was wondering, what is the penalty for providers who are not meeting this 95% within the week, or really dumping all of those doses that they've received before this week by Sunday? And then I wanted to know a little bit more about the distribution decisions. As we noted earlier in this briefing, Snohomish County has these drive-through sites, but no vaccines. When I did the math based on what the county gave me, you know, Snohomish County has more than 10% of the state's population. They were given like 3% of a weekly allocation from the entire state. I'm just wondering how those numbers add up to you.
I'll get back to you on that question with some further information about the distribution. Look, this is not going to be exactly a per capita basis because we have to make decisions to get shots in arms. And if one county has a little more ability to do that than another county, we got to go with the county has a little more ability to do that. I don't know if that's the situation in Snohomish County or not, but we got to get shots in arms. So it is not going to be exactly per capita, but the numbers you have, I will try to get a review of that and get back to you. Although, Michelle, do you have any insights on this or not?
Yeah, the one other piece I just want to add to this, Governor, and we can get back with exact numbers, is that some of the vaccine allocations have gone to large health systems that are in multiple counties. So the counties like Swedish or Providence, they may have been allocated to, and this is a real example, to their First Hill site, but then they were using it for sites in all of their counties, their sites in other counties, including sites in Snohomish County. So it is hard to look at the exact allocation numbers and determine that those vaccines are being used only in the county where they were allocated, because in fact, the health systems are moving them between all of their locations.
The question about the penalty, the biggest penalty is just the knowledge if you can save more lives the faster you get the vaccine into people's arms. That's the biggest downside of not being able to achieve this requirement. By the way, you said something about doses being wasted. No doses are going to be wasted. We've had very little, if any, doses going to waste here, so that's not going to happen. The penalty is that either the state will just take those doses if you're not getting them into people's arms according to our specifications and take them to a different location or a different county, or you will not get as many doses in the next week's allocation, if any. So we were very hopeful that it doesn't come to that. We hospitals are working really hard. I understand that. But we need to have more resources committed to this in our partners to get this done. Because this was, the only mechanism at our disposal, frankly. Because these distribution systems are not state agencies. I don't have direct control over them. I've got to use the power of persuasion and this tool to ask them to accelerate this distribution system.
Next question comes from Austin with Northwest News Network.
Governor, just because you have defended your COVID approach as being about saving lives, and you just mentioned a moment ago, if we deviate, there will be more deaths, that the focus has got to be continuing on not letting people die in this state. It looks like from the CDC, we're at 51 deaths per 100,000 people. Hawaii, by contrast, is 22 deaths per 100,000 people. Why is this, if this is about lives and saving lives, why not go even further? Why not order another shutdown? Why not do more to save more lives if that's really what this is about?
Well, I'm not sure which horse you guys want to ride criticizing the state of Washington. One time we're too lenient, the other time we're not lenient enough, so I can't quite understand that. Look, we are better than 45 other states, and we think that's a pretty good position to defend and continue on our course. If we shut down more businesses, there is more economic pain for people, and we have tried to make a value system that is at that sweet spot. And when you're better than 45 other states and you save 5, 6, 7, 8,000 people in a state while simultaneously maintaining relatively good economy in some sense, that's the where to set the needle. And in answer to your question, there's no algebraic equation chiseled in stone where that is. We have to use our hearts and our heads to figure out where that is. And I think this is a good place for us. I congratulate Hawaii. They have a little advantage called the Pacific Ocean. We haven't been able to reach that level. But I'm proud of what the state of Washington, and when I say the state of Washington, I don't mean the state government necessarily or exclusively. It's individuals who are wearing masks, who are ignoring some of the people who said who thinks this is just a hoax, who are complying as businesses. Vast majorities of businesses who are making very difficult decisions are complying. This is a success of the people of the state of Washington, and we encourage us to continue down this path and not wave the white flag of surrender. I do want to mention one other thing too, is that we are very concerned about this mutant virus. It is 50, 60% more transmittable. We have been told that we're 2 to 3 months away potentially of being in London's position if it ends up here in numbers. So this is a concerning time. So we think we're in the right spot.
Final question comes from Drew with King 5.
Good afternoon, Governor. I wanted to ask you about the transportation package that's been introduced by the House, calling for 18-cent gas tax increase over the next 2 years, a number of other fees as well. Do you support that on top of the carbon proposal and the capital gains tax proposal this year?
I haven't supported that specific proposal. I am hopeful that we can do good things this session. It could include transportation. I have proposed a cap and invest plan that simultaneously reduces carbon emissions and provides a revenue source that could be used for transportation infrastructure. And I believe that you're going to hear a lot of discussions in the halls of Olympia about how to finance transportation in the best way. I have suggested a cap and invest as a really environmentally productive and economically sound way to finance a variety of number of things, which could include transportation. And so that's what I'm proposing at this moment. But we are open to other ideas, and I've had discussions as recently as the last couple hours about how we're going to move forward on this.
Any final words, Governor?
No, I want to thank everybody for pitching in. We hope you're going to, if you're eligible, try to sign up for this vaccination. One of the other things I do want to note, though, that we still all need to be cautious even after we've had that first dose. I know there's a human tendency to sort of say, I'm okay now, I've had the first dose. It just isn't the case yet. We need to remain very cautious even after you've been vaccinated so that we can continue to save lives. Thank you very much.